All right, guys, we got a good show for today. Today we have Davis Cheek. He just got signed by Carolina Panthers and played college football at Elon. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
So I'm interested, everyone's, process is different, but what was your pre-draft process like and like what did it entail for you?
Yeah, so like you said, everybody's a little different, and I'm no exception to that. So I've had a few injuries. No secret, I had a few injuries in college. Tore my ACL in 2018, tore my Lis Frank in my right foot, and then I had to get another cleanup surgery after the season. And so I had that surgery November 30th of 2021. And so it kind of came as a well, we thought it was going to be some bone spurs and stuff like that I was dealing with, but I had been rolling my ankle so much because of where the bone spurs were that the outside of my ankle actually started getting um, there was just a single little tendon basically hanging on. And the doctor was like, "Look, this is crazy loose. I can tighten this up." He's like, "But because you're going to need to have it happen at some point in your career, and it's going to bother you like here very shortly if you don't." And I was, I was hurting a lot, so I just decided I was like, "Yeah, let's do it. I need to be as healthy as possible because I know if I get to a camp and I'm just can't perform and I can't run that kind of stuff, then I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to make a team." So I
Yeah.
decided I was like, you know what, I need to do it. So I did it, and I missed a bunch of like I was invited to the PA game, and I had to
Yeah.
sit on the sidelines for that. I had to start training late. I only got about a month of training before my pro day. So, and really, it was just my process was battling through that. I mean, that was the biggest thing for me, and just um, trying to make sure that as you go through it as well, mentally, you don't want to sit there and you're trying to guess. It's a huge guessing game of like, hey, where do people have you? Like,
Yeah.
how am I have I been doing the right things? Am I doing well? And I mean, I like to thank uh, the coach out in Exos Carlsbad. His name's Coach Roy Holmes. You know, he actually helped me out. I think more than he realized. And just there were times where he would just be like, you need to chill. Like you need to relax. Like everything. Like
Yeah.
you just started in this process. Like you need to just let things come naturally, and everything will work itself out. And it's something I needed to hear throughout that because I know I missed some time, and I was like, I really want this bad. And but the thing is that it'll come naturally if you let it, and you let yourself be you, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. You talked about like, went to the one game. So would you say like the biggest thing before you were able to have your pro day was just like honestly just like pre-draft interviews? Is that like the one thing you could control? Was that?
Yeah, yeah. It was pre-draft interviews was a big thing, and then just my day to day, making sure that I'm getting as healthy as possible. Those are the two biggest things. Those pre-draft interviews are definitely interesting. A lot of them for me weren't as in depth as I would have hoped. I was hoping that it get a little bit more, but they were really good. And honestly, like I had good conversations with just about everybody that I talked to. So I really enjoyed them, and I'm grateful that at least they even thought enough of me to reach out and ask those kind of things.
Yeah. So after like the draft happened, like, you have that undrafted free agency period. How'd you end up with Carolina? Can you kind of talk me through like, I imagine it's a crazy process as soon as the draft ends. Like,
Yeah, it's just basically you're just on the phone and you're just trying to figure out. And really what it is your agents. It's your agent's
yeah,
job. So I was more getting the information from him, but I was just like, there's a couple guys working, and they have a team of guys, and they have a big board. They're like, okay, this team drafted a quarterback, so this might not be a good spot, or hey, this is a good situation, even though a team drafted a quarterback. So
yeah,
and we were in talks with some people and things like that. I was like, look, I like it,
yeah,
like let's do it, let's go for it. And it ended up being, I think, the best thing for me. I think it's a good situation. I have a chance to go in there and prove myself.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, like there's three other quarterbacks there that are all like at least either played in the league or Carolina drafted Matt
yeah,
Corral in the third round. I mean,
yeah.
that's huge. That's their guy. So I mean, my job is just to go in there and fit into wherever I can. So yeah, it was just a crazy kind of process.
Yeah. So now that like you're in Carolina, do you know like the timeline? Like when are you like going to mini camp and like everything with the team?
Yeah. So really, all I know right now is that basically mini camp is 13th through 15th for rookies. I'm pretty sure it's pretty much once you get there,
Yeah.
it's 3 days, pretty intensive, and it's just, hey, I think things are broken up pretty consistently through like a couple weeks, stuff like that. But I'm not exactly sure. I'm just gonna show up when they tell me to show up,
Yeah.
and pretty much do everything I can. And I'm excited. I can't wait to get back to North Carolina.
Yeah. So for me personally, like when I started like every avenue, like I just started my first college season this year. Like I had like a set of goals. Like now that you're moving on to this next, chapter, like what are like the goals for yourself?
The biggest goal I have right now is make a roster. That's for someone in my situation.
Mhm.
I think it's extremely important to set very high goals that when you tell other people, people are going to be like, that's crazy. Like, come on, like really, like be realistic here. I think it's important to have those kind of goals, but I think it's also important to be honest with yourself and just the
Yeah.
situations that you're in. Because if you set too lofty of a goal, then you're just going to be disappointed, and it's going to be harder for you to reach that goal. You're going to look at top of Mount Everest, and you're going to be like, there's no way I'm getting up there.
Yeah.
Thing is that you got to set those little benchmarks and those landmarks. So that's what it is for me, is trying to get to make a roster. That's a lofty goal right now. I'm
Yeah.
fighting an uphill battle, and the thing is that's great. I've always felt like I do well in those situations. So I'm, like I said, I'm just excited to get it going, and that's my biggest goal right now.
Yeah. So in college, you like experienced honestly as many like injury or shortened or like negated season as you did like full campaigns. I'm interested, like when you got injured in your spring season of 2021, like how did you stay positive and what did you do, like if anything, like stay in shape? Because you had a fantastic, year this year. Like what was that like?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to staying positive, that's definitely it's something that's hard. I mean, it's the thing is especially when you have an injury, the thing that makes it difficult is, for one, you got the pain, so it's pain management.
Yeah.
It can make anybody, like, any sort of pain can make anybody like just a nasty person to be around. They don't
Mhm.
really want to be around them.
Yeah.
The thing that I realize is that the storm ends. The storm ends at some point, whether it's a day, a month, year, whatever it is. That pain subsides. That pain goes away. So um, you just gotta basically weather the storm as best as possible. And so I learned that really heavily through the foot injury. The foot injury was, pain wise, just different than
Yeah.
ACL. ACL was more, I would say, tougher right after surgery, and then the foot was just consistently tougher because I also had a couple other things going on with it. Um, so I would say, just from that aspect, that's how I stayed positive, is just understanding that the storm ends. And I also had a great support system, my team, and all that kind of stuff. Those guys were fantastic. I had a buddy who was going through the same sort of injury as me, so that was helpful as well. And what was the second part that you'd like to know?
Oh, I said, and like, what, if anything, could you do to like stay in shape? Is like, because with COVID, it was like hard, and then you couldn't play the spring season. Now you're waiting. It's
Yeah. So it was, and basically, I just kind of had to I had to be extremely disciplined and work with the coaches on the side, kind of thing.
yeah,
And also, when it comes to lower extremity, especially a foot, in the foot, there's not a lot of blood flow. So the thing is, the recovery is just different. Like, you really do have to manage the load that you put on it. So there were a lot of days where, if I was on my foot for Monday, then Tuesday I couldn't necessarily do it. But the thing is, I needed to work out still. I needed to work, aerobic capacities, all this sort of thing. So I would get on a bike. I would, do a rowing machine, stuff like that. So you have to get creative, and that was part of our strength coach and the staff's job, which they did a fantastic job, trying to help us all out. And they have an absolutely amazing strength program at Elon. That's something I can't speak highly enough about, but that was the biggest thing. And also, I think I had filled out a little bit my upper body. That was a big deal for me. It's just looking the part and passing the eye test for whenever the NFL scouts started coming around.
yeah. So both of us, we played or were playing at FCS, programs, and I was just talking to my friend the other day. Whether or not people like the transporter or not, it's like it's made it harder for people coming in to play as a freshman. So being a quarterback, you got to like play your freshman year. Like, how much do you value like going to like an FCS school and getting to play. Whereas if you go to like a big, it's great to go to Ohio State, but you might not play, till your senior year. Like,
Yeah. So, and this kind of goes, so when I was in high school, the thing I was convinced of is that if I had one more year, then I think I could have really put some people on notice or
yeah,
whatever it was. And so that what I realized is that it's the most important thing when you're choosing a college and choosing a place to go is to find somewhere that wants you, and that you're not their second, third, fourth option. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, especially now, it's more of a business.
yeah,
And go where you can play as early as possible. There is no substitute for experience.
yeah,
And that experience teaches you more than just sitting there, watching other guys, something like that. Obviously, everybody's situation is different, but it really does not matter if it's D1, D2, D3. You're going to have a struggle. You're going to have a grind. You're going to have some sort of thing that the resources is a big deal. There's the difference in resources between like the top programs like in Alabama, and then even like you get down into
MAC and those
Power Five, the Power Five, and then Group 5, then FCS. Like there is a big difference now, but at the end of the day, you can use that as an excuse, or you can just work around it. If you really want to get something done, then I think that you will. But the two most important things is just go somewhere that wants you, and then go somewhere that you think you can play early. Don't run from the competition, but go somewhere where you think you can play early. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Before this interview, I was like thinking, I had my exit meeting, and I want to ask you because I wanted to connect a little bit. So like for me, it was like freshman years, like you got to have a short memory. Like, I'm not going to go out and have my best day. At quarterback, I was wondering if like, is it important, or like how important is it to have like a short memory out there in the field?
It's so funny. This is something I've been really working on in my golf game.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've always done it much, much better in football. With football, it's been extremely natural. I wouldn't say easy, but it's been extremely natural for me to just keep myself even keeled. I've always just had this like underlying belief and self-assurance that it really doesn't matter the situation of the game. If I do my job and I do everything I can, then that should lead to good things. You stack the one good thing, you make it 2, you make it 4, you make it 8, and you just keep going. But it's paramount that you have a short memory. Ted Lasso says you have to be a goldfish, and that's true. Yeah, like you do. And it's the thing is that whenever you get your emotions way up high, like your nervous system like goes haywire. Like it's hard to reel yourself back in, and then you're fighting yourself. And that's the thing that I never wanted to do. I never wanted to have to fight myself and fight the situation of the game, stuff that I just can't control. You know what I mean? So that's why, like, if for me, I kind of, when I'm out there and if I throw a ball, and let's say I like it's a good throw, it's exactly where I needed to be, it's on time, everything, the DB just makes a good play. He picks it off. Worst case scenario there. Obviously I'm not okay with it, but I'm not going to sit there and like beat myself up about it and like go into a hole, because that's not going to do anything for my teammates.
Yeah.
So it's just that understanding, I think, that's always helped me kind of have that short memory and be able to get in that mindset. And because you want to get in a flow state as much as possible. That's when you perform your best.
Yeah. I want to talk about a game you probably want to remember for a while. So this was when I started the podcast. Like I first heard about you during this game, and then I've always wanted to have you on. So when you guys beat James Madison at James Madison, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like you had a final second drive. It was like final 90 seconds. You had a game-winning drive. Can you talk about that game and like what it was like going there and beating a powerhouse in FCS?
Yeah, so that game was super crazy. So leading up to it, like there was obviously a lot of hype around it, but the thing was that like that whole practice week, there was not a single guy in our building that was like not nervous, but doubtful that we could win. There wasn't a single guy that wasn't like, yo, we're gonna beat them. Like if you go back and ask a bunch of different guys from those teams or from that team, every single one of them would be like, yeah, there was just an energy that like we were gonna go up there and beat them.
Yeah,
it's that self-confidence. So we played like it, you know what I mean? And the thing that's funny about that game, how I remember it, is that I really didn't play a great game. Like I really didn't play a great game until like I started the way the game went is like first, second, third quarter was very just like up and down, like some good, some bad, some indifferent, whatever. But the thing was is that, and this has just always held true to me, as I always felt like when my back was against the wall, I've always played my best.
Yeah.
The thing was like that 2 minute drive, like that's exactly what it is. It's just like I don't know. I don't like, to be honest, there's not much I remember other than some of the crazy catches and stuff like that, because you just zone it, like you get so locked into everything, but at the same time you just kind of play, you just let your body take over, and your mind kind of dissipates, and that's the best thing. Like you don't hear the crowd, you don't hear anything. It's a really cool feeling, I'd say. But it was really really awesome, and then to get the game winning pick and then go out there, take a knee, give the ball to everybody, like that was just a super fun game, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. One transition to some other games. So this year you guys get to play App State. The 2022 team gets to play Vanderbilt. What's it mean for a program, an FCS program, to play these big time like FBS teams?
It's an opportunity. It's a big opportunity, and I mean people have different names for them and stuff like that, but that's the way I always saw it. Like even my first game playing against Toledo, like the thing was that game, man, I was so nervous as well. I was like, and that moment made me instead of me making that moment.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I started learning how to be able to handle that, and that's super key. I mean, especially going into NFL where every week is a tough week. You know, there's no like everybody's every team in the NFL is a good team. Like they have extremely good players. You got to be on the ball, or else you can get beat at any point at any week. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's been like a little bit of like a trend like in the last few years of like, I really got invested like watching the draft, and you see a bunch of players at like all different levels get drafted. So when you were like probably like, 2019, 2020 draft, like you're seeing these guys get drafted, you're seeing these guys get picked up. Did you use that to like motivate yourself and like, yeah, this is like a real possibility for me?
Yeah, for sure. I've always thought it was a possibility for me. I don't know if it was ignorance or whatever it was. 'Cause maybe I don't know if I really had any business believing this when I was younger, but I think that if anything helped me out, like I said, those dreams got to be bigger than what you are. But I like it doesn't really hit you until you start the process, I'd say. I
Yeah.
mean, you never know like what a guy's going through, or like what their process is like, what their situation is when they're at school. So that's why it's so hard as well to just like to draft these people, to draft and see how they're going to project. It's such a hard thing to try and figure out. But yeah, I mean, I always watch those drafts, and I would always not necessarily compare myself, but more just be like, I can do this. Like guys are coming from my level, guys are coming from lower than mine. Like why not me?
Yeah.
Why can't I do that?
Yeah. I'm assuming like you're, obviously a big football fan. You watch football all the time. What do you think makes like a great quarterback great?
A great quarterback. I mean, first you have to have the talent. You have to have the natural talent to be able to throw a ball. Have the physical. Like you got to have at least like above average height. For the most part. I mean, there's those people like Kyler Murray, who's just an absolute freak of nature. But I mean, you got to have talent. That's one of the biggest things. But then I think you have to have a large amount of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
That's a very big key to being a leader. Because people say the word leader a lot, but the thing is, there's a lot of things that go into that. And I think emotional intelligence is one of the biggest parts of that. You got to be able to put yourself in the shoes of all your teammates. You got to know how to motivate them. You got to know how to talk to them when they don't want to be talked to. How are you going to reach a guy who just dropped the game-winning touchdown? You know what I mean? Like and the thing is, like most of the guys who play for the opportunity to go play at the next level. So, and the thing is, like most guys are putting that pressure on themselves to perform. And the thing is, it's a very dark hole that you can go into if you allow yourself to basically set expectations and then fall short of them. So you gotta basically learn how to manage expectations and manage people's emotions. And on top of that, you have to do it yourself. it's a lot easier to look at other people's situations and say, this is how you should do it because you have the clear vision. And it's a lot harder when to understand and be honest with yourself and to say, hey, this is where I'm weak. I got to make my weakness into a strength.
Yeah.
So I would say those two things are the biggest things. Obviously, one of them you can kind of control, and then one of them you can totally control. You know, you can learn emotional intelligence. You can have emotional intelligence. I would say, yeah, those two are the biggest things.
Yeah, I want to transition to final few questions. I want to talk about a little bit about high school. So you played basketball and football in high school. When
Yep.
do you know like you could play college football?
I knew I could play college football from when I was like 5, 6 years old. Like I definitely felt like I was one of the better players, at least on pretty much every team that I would play
Yeah,
on. So I always felt, at least I always treated myself like that. I don't know if that's ego or not.
yeah,
And but I always felt that way. And then when I got to high school, I started like, that I went through a bunch of different stuff. Like I always had some challenges in high school. I always had to like try and beat a guy out, or I had to try and fight with like transfers come in or something like that, and I
yeah,
had to scrap and claw. And after my junior season, I was really the guy. The senior season, I was able to really perform. That was when I was able to kind of take off. Um, but I pretty much chose football by my junior year. I pretty much said I'm not playing basketball anymore, because I mean I could, I'm a 6'2" white guy. Like
yeah,
I could shoot a little bit.
yeah,
I mean, I wasn't a great offensive player. Like I was scrappy on defense. I could jump pretty high in high school. But like I'd have to be I'd have to be an extremely good ball handler. I'd be an extremely good shooter. Like, and like those are the kind of stuff that I was just a much better naturally better quarterback than
yeah,
I was a naturally better basketball player. Like I had to work really hard to be decent at basketball. And even still, like there were guys that just could flat out beat me because they were just way
yeah.
more talented. And that's fair enough. I mean, that's the way it works, you know?
Yeah, I experienced that a lot in the AAU circuit. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that was when they separated the great from us. Like it was just like for me, it was after freshman year, I was like, I'm done with this. So
Because
yeah. So what would be one piece of advice you would give to like a high school athlete?
don't let any opportunity go to waste. And just try to learn about yourself, try to learn about the game, try to learn about your teammates. Invest that time, and you know those are the biggest things. And if you're trying to learn about yourself, you're like, well, where do I start there? You want to figure out who you are. I mean, high school is a big time where you start to figure out who you are. And the best thing I'd say is that you don't just figure out how you figure out who you are, is you first ask yourself who you are not. Who do you not want to be? And once you basically get that list down of like, hey, I don't want to be this, you kind of left with a list of like, oh, hey, these are the values that I want to emulate and be. So I'd say just start to ask yourself those questions, because I mean you have to ask yourself those questions if you want to put yourself through everything that you got to go through in college and just life in general. I mean, life's always going to throw things at you, and that's why sports is so amazing, because it's just it's a parallel to life. So yeah, I would say just don't waste any opportunities, man. Don't waste any opportunities. Learn about yourself, learn about your teammates, and try to just put that time in. Like you never get that time back, and just enjoy it as much as possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's why we always do it. I mean, sports, it's like one of the greatest life lessons. I mean, I think that's why everyone should pick up a sport, once in their life, whether or not you're, to a high level, like you should just play a sport.
Yeah.
Final question. We always finish off with it. So when your career is over down the line, how do you want to be remembered?
To be completely honest, I want to be remembered as somebody who helped influence a generation, helped influence people to just be better and than they even thought they could be, and someone that just helped everyone out along the way, that always tried to elevate people and not ever bring people down.
Yeah, well, I couldn't. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And Davis, I really appreciate you coming on, man. It means a lot. I wish you the best of luck with Carolina and
Thanks.
everything. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you.